Hello? Good. Figured out.
All right, so while we're getting everything ready, my apologies first off on the slow start on this. As you all know, we had a room change there, and one of the parts that makes this really challenging is the fact that we had done a bunch of custom audio work. Yes. Everybody's good now?
There we go.
We've done a bunch of custom audio work in the previous room. We've got a great tech team in the back that's making this one happen, but we had a lot of crazy requests that we had. So they had to go through, take everything that they had done, move it over here, and do it all over again. And they've done that in like 20 minutes. So kudos to the guys in the back for a job well done. All right, so let me start with this for a second here. I'm going to just tell you all a story because this is what happens when you try to put together an event like this, a presentation where there's so many moving pieces and we've got so many pieces that we need to be able to demo off of. So about a week ago, I was sitting in my home lab. I'm working I've got this nice comfortable chair and all the rest of it. The window's open, the birds are chirping and everything. Life is happy. I'm typing away and all I hear is boom. Uh-oh. Everything goes dark. Transformer blue, a whole block goes down. I'm doing the assessment at this point in time. Can I get to my lab fast enough and actually shut down my virtuals? Answer is no. My UPS was not long enough of the duration to actually hold out. So corrupted lab number one. So that's a great way to start. Second lab, service manager. Here's a great service manager lesson that I learned the hard way. Never, ever call your management group for service manager the same thing as you call your management group for operations manager. Because, I hear the chuckles out there. If anybody's actually tried this or done this, here's what happens. I took the working service manager environment and worked on it until I got the ops manager agent working properly. That breaks all of service manager now. So, second lesson learned. And with that, let me go ahead and hand this off. I'm going to allow Mr. Mike Vrabel to introduce us.
Perfect. Testing. We're good? It's time for 3 rounds of provisioning in IT. Our tale of the tape for this main event. This man is an IT consultant holding an IT history of 20 years and an MVP status for 9 years. He specializes in operations manager, consulting out of Dallas, Texas. You may know him from his Twitter as C. Fuller MVP Bang. Coming in at 45 pounds, Cameron Fuller. This man is an IT consultant, holding an IT history of 18 years and an MVP status for 7 years. He specializes in configuration manager, consulting out of San Antonio, Texas. You may know him from his Twitter as Jason Sandys Bang. Introducing the awkwardly tall Jason Sandys. Is that okay?
Yep, yeah. See if you can do it without holding it. Let's see if it'll roll. Okay.
This man is an IT consultant holding an IT history of 18 years and an MVP status of 1 year. He specializes in service manager, consulting out of Denver, Colorado. You may know him from his Twitter as SCSMUS Bang. Making his provisioning IT debut, Chris the Dynasty Ross.
All right. Go Ross.
Nice glamour shot there, Chris.
Yeah, good glamour shot. We like that one, dude. And again, we can't have all of these, high caliber folks out here unless we're going to bring somebody who's going to be able to truly go up against us. So we had to bring in the big guns. I present you Carl. Yes, this is right. This is Carl. Playing the part of Carl today, you have Mr. Mike Vrabel. Mike himself is a great IT professional, but he will be playing the part of an IT person working on a help desk who's been doing this for a long time, and he's going to help be the counterpoint around.
Too long.
Yeah, I know. We'll get there. All right, moving onward. Okay, so first off, here's the agenda for our session. We're going to go through a short period of discussion related to integration points in System Center. We're going to talk about Service Manager, Orchestrator, Ops Manager, and Configuration Manager very quickly to kind of level set. If you have these software products, this is how you can integrate them, all right? The goal of this session, and we'll explain this in the second part, is to explain the concept that you get more than the idea of 2 + 2 + 2 when it comes to System Center. If you add Ops Manager, Orchestrator, and Configuration Manager, it's more like 2 × 2 × 2, or 2 to the second, if you see what I mean there. Second part of this we're going to go through is provisioning scenarios and demos, and we're going to do this in a 3-round format. As you can tell, we're doing this one in a themed approach, so we're actually making these into rounds. We're going to go through users and groups, we're going to hit virtuals after that, and then we're going to go into software. And then if there's enough time, we'll hit some other scenarios. All right, so let me start with a quick discussion on Operations Manager and integration points around it. This is my favorite slide in the deck, and the reason why is I'm an Ops Manager guy. So having it, you all know what I mean with that, right? It belongs in the center.
You're a mom geek.
Yeah, I know I'm a mom geek. So I'm glad you PC'd that up. That was very cool. I appreciate that. But Operations Manager is connected to all these different products through a series of management packs. It gives you the answer to the question of how, or why, or what, all of that, but it's telling it from a monitoring perspective. What's going on? How do I know what's going on? Why the heck did this happen? Or preferably, why did it happen before it happened? So those are your integration points associated with this, and each of the components that you'll see here will be things that will show us different flows as we move forward during this presentation. You're up, Jason.
Orchestrator. So Orchestrator is one of the newer pieces. It's kind of the glue for all of the other pieces in System Center, right? We have traditionally had kind of weak links between some of the System Center products, and that's really what Orchestrator is all about. The cool thing about Orchestrator, though, is that it's not limited to just System Center. There are integration packs. So integration packs in Orchestrator are very similar to management packs in Operations Manager, for those that are familiar. And what they do is they allow Orchestrator to talk to other disparate systems. So out of the box, Microsoft actually provides things for third-party products. One of the few places they actually do something this explicit, where they're providing you connectivity to those other products. And so it allows these components to all talk to each other, to exchange data, to initiate activity among the other components. So whether you actually have Service Manager in your environment, whether you actually have Ops Manager, of course, those beg the question, why don't you? But that's a whole side topic. If you're using something else, you can actually integrate. And of course, if you need to integrate with something else that's in your environment, something homegrown, you can build your own integration packs relatively easily. So at the end of the day, Orchestrator is the glue for all of System Center.
Hold on.
Too far.
One moment, please. Apologies.
It's just weird.
There we go. Okay. Wow. Challenged by PowerPoint even today. Go ahead. Did I miss one?
We went too far. Did we go too far?
Hold on. You had a second one in here. That's why our sorry about that. All right. So, Jason, you're still up.
I am still up.
For some crazy reason, we thought you'd like to talk about Config Manager. I'm sorry.
There you go. So the moneymaker, right? The one that really actually spawned everything else, and without the actual big dog in the room, none of the other products would actually exist. And we wouldn't have Mom Geeks, and we wouldn't have Glamour Shots. But that's okay. So we all know and hopefully love Config Manager, because I know I do. So Config Manager allows us to manage our operating systems, right? So whether it's Unix now, whether you're unfortunate enough to have to support Macintoshes, and of course Windows, right? We're going to be able to manage things like, of course, deploying the operating system. Weird feedback. Stay away.
Stand away.
Software updates, software distribution, inventory, all of those wonderful things that we know and love that we've all been doing in our data centers, in our user environments for a long time. That's exactly what Config Manager is. So it's kind of the base. It's not really pulling data from anything else, but it is feeding data into all of these other systems. And of course, we love it. Love it.
I
You take one thing away, you love it.
We're going to talk about the part that everybody else loves. System Center Service Manager. Service Manager is the new integral piece to this whole puzzle. It's what really brings everything together. It provides us a baseline database called the CMDB to start bringing in all that data from Config Manager, Ops Manager, VMM, and really the platform to start automation and the point of access out to the end users. Service Manager sits squarely in the center of this universe now. And what's great with it is we have the capability of hooking up with all these systems that you see on the screen right now out of the box in mere moments with the built-in connector framework that comes with Service Manager. So we don't need to spend 2 weeks of time ramping up and getting our Config Manager collections over. It's minutes. Within that, we're off and running.
Excellent. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start the provisioning scenarios piece of this. So what I'm going to mention is that with background on this, there's a whole lot of ways that you can do something like this, all right? Some of these are going to be automated. Some of these could be manual. It depends on really what is the business needs from your organization. I saw a great session today from Pete Zerger and crew where they were talking about Orchestrator and how you determine what you should orchestrate and what you shouldn't orchestrate. I'm going to just give the summation, in my opinion, is if you're going to save money on it and you do it pretty frequently, it's a good idea to probably automate it. But it's going to vary depending on what you're looking for. And the second thing is that the right option for your organization may really depend upon what System Center components you're going to use and your own business requirement specific. So it will vary. But with that, let us get to the main event. All right.
I'm Carl. I am anti-automation. I find I have consultants coming in, and invariably they wreck something with some crazy script that they write. So when we talk about user provisioning, what that means to me in a very efficient system is I get an email, I go in AD, create an account, I manually link the groups, and I manually maybe add their profile, UNC, everything just works.
What's your favorite word, Carl?
Excuse me?
What's your favorite word?
Donuts? What?
All right.
Cigarette break? What? So anyway, so where I work currently now, we have 3 full-time guys. All we do is account provisioning, and it just works.
All right. So I hear you, Carl. I hear you. So there's something to be said, though I'm not sure what, related to completely doing everything manually. So I'm going to throw out a couple of other options here, just for your consideration. So the first is you can do like an orchestrator-only approach to this, right? I have a client that I worked with as an example where they don't hire and fire in the 1s and the 2s and the 3s. They hire and fire in the hundreds on a weekly basis, all right? If they were going to take your approach to this, they wouldn't just have 3 guys doing this. There would be an entire team doing nothing but hiring and firing people and doing the actual process. You like this, I get this.
Job security.
Yeah, but do you want that job? I mean, seriously, do you really want to be doing that forever? So I've seen that one as a classic example. So what you can do with something like that is you can take a file from like an ADP data feed, take that in, put it through an automated processing approach within Orchestrator, and let it generate those users for you. So that may make sense in some environments. So, I mean, you can automate some of these things. It does require a data file from your provider and time to create the integration, but once you've done it, it takes care of itself. And another interesting thing on this is, you know what's really cool here? You can do this outside of hours. So when you're out like not working and everything, we can run these automated scripts and they run without you being there.
I don't know. Sounds like I'm going to be out of a job. Wait a minute.
Nah.
How's your carpal tunnel doing, by the way? Doing good?
I don't work enough.
All right. Now, we can also do Service Manager plus Orchestrator. That's really where you start getting all the pieces put together here. So if we, as an example, have an organization, a regular organization where we don't hire and fire hundreds on a daily basis, but we hire and fire multiple people, and we want to have a consistent process. We want to have a process where somebody logs into a portal, they submit a request, they put in the information that's required, it goes through an appropriate workflow, an approval process, the manager says it happens, and it generates the AD account, generates the Exchange account, maybe even spins up their Link account, things like that. All right? So the negatives on this is just really that it takes some time to be able to configure install the different components and configure those types of integrations. So that's what we're going to take a look at here.
Hey,
Carl,
who does your job while you're on a pub crawl?
My company doesn't train me. I don't have time.
All right, Carl. All right, so let me talk about user provisioning, what this looks like from a component level perspective. This is why we showed the initial screens before so you could see what we're working with. So Service Manager, executing a run book, which is actually running through Orchestrator, and then using integration packs to execute actions on both Active Directory and Exchange. The one we're going to show you is just a very simple one. The key thing that we wanted to bring across in this demo is, and I'll tell you, I mentioned before, I'm an operations manager guy, right? So I don't know Service Manager, I don't know Orchestrator, I don't know most of these components. And working on this for the last few weeks has actually shown me how easy it is to be able to pull these things in together and how to leverage the benefit from these. So we've got a lot of great lessons learned that we've got from going through this. So we're going to show you our simple ones here. There are third-party solutions. I know, as an example, Calvarian's got one. I think that's user provisioning. The rest of it, I think you knew about one too, Jason, or one of the other guys did.
Calvarian's the big one.
Okay, so Calvarian's got like a more baked-in one, but we want to show you kind of the simple pieces of what it looks like. So what it kind of looks like is something like this. So we've got a new user provisioning request. They execute a work through, again, through Orchestrator, which again talks to both Active Directory and Exchange. So you get the general flow of what this looks like. But general flow is not as much fun as the actual demo, which we'll hit here in a minute after I go through group provisioning. So the second thing is we also want to be able to make and automate the process to be able to add users into groups. So we want to be able to have somebody who can log in again to a portal and Service Manager, pick the user that they want to work from, take that user, pick a list of available groups, add that user into the group, again put it through an approval process to make sure that they're allowed to have access to that group, and then have it do that corresponding change in Active Directory. And what that looks like is a lot like this. So Service Manager, again, front-end portal through Orchestrator, and then over into Active Directory. Now I think with that, I get to hand this off to Mr. Ross.
I believe so.
And you are on channel 2, correct?
I am channel 2. Thank
All right, so with that, I will hush.
Excellent. Thanks, Cameron. So here, just to give you a quick primer, we've got the Service Manager self-service portal. This has been branded to the look and feel of your company. It's got some fun stuff in there. Hopefully, we want to make this an inviting place for people to go and actually want to put requests in. We want to get this stuff in an efficient way, get it cataloged, categorized, and then into the system, and hopefully automated. So in this case, we've got a nice, what's called a service offering called Users and Groups. I can do some catapult dynamic automation awesomeness here, so that sounds fantastic. From here, we have our request offerings. Our request offerings are the different types of services that we're really offering out. This is the service catalog for your entire organization. So I've got Optimus Prime here for my new user request.
That would be custom, I assume, right? That's not out of the box Optimus Prime
Yeah, sorry. Optimus does not come out of the box, but very easy to add them in. So here's my user request. We're looking at the same things that we just talked about in the demo. We've got first name, so we'll just do us. And we can look for the manager of that person through a nice little query. I'll scroll down a little bit. Hey, I think I should be his manager. Why not?
Better you than me.
Yeah. This guy's on Carl's team.
Yeah, people person. This is good.
I'll drop him in IT, and we even show a start date here, so fantastic. Let me scroll down a little bit more. Screen resolution's a little low, but here we've got a nice little summary page. We'll go ahead and submit this in, and we see that a service request has been created. So very quickly, we've got that request into the system. We're passing that off. The idea here is, with as few clicks as humanly possible, we're going to be able to get this information into Service Manager, accurate, repeatable, the same process each and every time. So that's key. At this point, we can go over and look. I'll pull up the service request, and again, this is what the end user or the HR person or IT person would see. And we see that this service request, it's in progress, and our activities here are built out so that we get an approval activity, and then we actually launch a runbook and execute this particular add new user. So in this case, it'll take a minute. What I'd like to do is kind of show you the orchestrator side so you can see that firsthand. So we see our review activities in progress now.
So there's that nice request action log there. Carl, when you create a user, do you log that anywhere?
I have an Excel spreadsheet that I keep on my local machine.
I like your documentation. That's
Thanks.
good. We're going to talk.
Excellent.
This is cool.
I don't have time to document. It's right here, job security.
So what we're looking at now is the orchestrator console. And the orchestrator console shows us our runbooks. Specifically, I'm looking at the runbook here for new user. That's the piece on the right. You see that we actually call the data into this runbook through what's called an initialized task. I'm not going to get too deep on this. It's pretty basic stuff. It's just sitting there waiting for the runbook to pass along an ID to it.
Now, hold on. I'm going to interject here for just a second. So if we've got all of this in Orchestrator right now, and we've kind of built this, I mean, shouldn't we blog this and provide it to the community so that they actually can see all of this type of stuff? Wouldn't that make a lot of sense?
Oh, it certainly makes sense to me.
Excellent. So is that Chris Ross volunteering to assist with the blog post on this when we're done?
Yes, you will be able.
There we go. That's called delegating upward. All right.
That's a great segue, Cameron, because we are going to make every one of our management packs and orchestrator run books available to everybody after the presentation. So we'll get them posted out. We'll tweet about it. You'll be able to grab these and modify them to your heart's content. So I see my new user here is run. I actually see a fun little error here. This will tell me what I did wrong. It did not update my user, and that's, I think, actually okay. So at this point, we've gone through, we've grabbed the user, and we've added them to Active Directory. We've created a a mailbox for them, and that has executed. So if I hop back into my Service Manager portal, and this can take a second or so, but we should be able to see that the runbooks, that one's probably actually going to give me the business here in a second. Let's see if our AD user was created.
Refresh.
Oh, did I do 05 earlier?
I don't remember if you did 05. That could explain why.
Yeah, I think I renamed it.
Oh, we did 10? Hold on, go back
I
and
did
hit.
10.
Yeah, do a refresh. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So do a refresh on our domain controller. Let's just see if anything's over there. Any updates?
Not yet.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll come back to that guy.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one at a later point in time. Because we want to also go through the group pieces of this as well. So it'll give us a good time frame to go through some of that.
Perfect. So let's look real quick back into our user and groups service offering. Let's grab that request offering, add user to AD group. Go ahead and launch our request form here. And again, the same scenario that we were looking at a few moments ago. So we're going to look for our user. I'll just pick on MMS 05. There he is. So I've got my user, and let's add him to a, he's already going to be there.
Yeah, how about a server operator?
Server operators, that sounds like a good one.
By the way, what do you do? I mean, are you a server operator, or what would your title be?
Help desk. I'm
Help
help
desk.
desk
Okay,
admin.
just checking. All right.
Yeah, you one of those server guys that thinks you're above the help desk guy?
No, not at all. I'm just curious. I was wondering if maybe you're multi-skilled and do both service, server management as well as help desk.
I'm biding my time.
I'll get you.
I've only been 20 years. Give me time.
Okay, career path. Good. I like that. Very good. All right.
So here I had a business justification I could pass through. We'll go ahead and next that. Again, the same process, a quick review, and our request is submitted. So again, the same process is going to happen with Orchestrator, where if we look at the Service Manager status, we're going to see that this will kick into in progress in a few moments. And then just to give you a quick preview on the Orchestrator side, here's our add user to group. Very simplistic. It's, again, just grabbing the data from the actual activity from the service request work item out of Service Manager. It's getting a run book, it's creating relationships, and it's going out, and eventually there at the end, you see that it's adding that user to the Active Directory group. So again, very straightforward and very easy to follow, actually. I think it's executing now.
Hey, Chris, can we show how that would tie back, in essence? How does Service Manager know? I mean, does it have a list of run books? And how does it know which run book it's actually going to run? How does that all work?
Yeah, so basically, everything is done in templates for the most part in Service Manager. We rely heavily on them to script out our workflow and really make sure that things happen at the desired and preferred time. So within templates, and I could pull up a template, it's a little boring, but the idea is in the library here, we have direct connectivity to our run book. So that comes straight across from the Orchestrator connector, brings all that data in, and then I just add that as an automation activity, put it in my template, make sure it's ready to go, and that's how we do it.
All right, very cool.
So let's take a look back over. We'll give it a refresh or two, or we'll
I would
move on
have
and
3
we'll come
users
back.
created by now. I just wanted you to know.
Really? We'll talk about that later, Mark.
Yeah, would they be the same is a good question. So if you had 3 users,
You don't
do you
get to
have
ask
a
questions.
process?
It's not question and answer time yet.
All right, so it's Q&A time for anyone other than Carl, if y'all need. So
Carl's customer service scores are through the roof, by the way.
be good, yeah. Please don't rate us down because you didn't like Carl personally. It's not his fault. He's acting a role. All right. So why don't we do this, Chris?
Yeah, we'll come
take a
back
look,
to this in a few. And
or take a look over just really quick on Orchestrator, just see if it looks like the workflow ran, and then a quick look
Yeah.
at AD, and then we'll shift back to the PowerPoint and
that
kind of
makes
see where we're at from there.
yeah, so we've got a success on this. It ran
sure.
just a moment ago.
Okay.
So very good. And in AD, if we go pull up our...
Here's where we ask the audience again, which user did we use again? Which group? I think it was MMS 05. Groups are... Member of.
Looking
Top.
for it.
Top.
Thank you.
There we go, right there. Carl, where's that at? Yeah, there's server operators. All
Is
right.
this touchscreen?
Yeah, I wish. That'd be nice.
All right, excellent. So we've got them in server operators. So with that, let me go ahead and shift back to our PowerPoint deck here. All right, so thank you, Chris. Good stuff, man. All right. All right, so this would be no fun if it wasn't interactive in some way, shape, or form. So this is now your opportunity to have a whole lot of fun at our expense. All right, it is your time to determine who won the first round.
Don't vote on the pictures.
Yeah, don't vote on the pictures. That can't factor in. Just because Carl has a social life that I don't have doesn't mean that he wins. So this is voted through Twitter. So we're going to get a Twitter response back on this and find out how the feedback goes in terms of whether it's going to be Carl or whether it's going to be System Center.
Yeah, exactly. So vote for pound SYS CTR MVP if you think the System Center MVP's won. Vote for pound SCU Carl if you think Carl won.
Come on, guys.
All right, we got one boo in the crowd. I like it. It's a good start. We're working this. All right. Round 2. Let's go to virtuals.
So this whole virtual thing, can we finally admit it's just a fad? This cloud thing, it's going to go away. Next year, as soon as the Surface 2 comes out, Microsoft's going to stop talking about the cloud and they're going to talk about Surface 2. Let's be clear.
I'm not so sure that I'm on board with you on that. I think it's probably here to stay. I think that virtual thing is probably at least here to stay.
Anybody agree with me? Anybody have problems connecting to the internet this week?
Okay. Awkward. Okay. I kind of get you on that. Are there any other negatives you'd like to point out that you see related to automating this or something, man?
It's hard.
It's hard?
I need, it's not intuitive. I need training.
Okay.
You need training.
I do. Extensive training.
You've identified a career path.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, common feedback that we get on negatives of automating is things like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to release this to the wild. I don't want to give a portal to all my users and let them spin up virtuals and, virtual my entire environment to death. I mean, the analogy that I think of regularly is, I've got a 14-year-old son and he has friends, okay? And y'all with kids about that age know where this is going to go, especially if it's a boy. I go to the grocery store and fill the pantry. I come home, he's had friends over, and the pantry is now empty. It's the same correlation with the virtualization stuff here. You spin up these whole load of hosts that you're going to use and all the rest of it, and as soon as you throw that over the wall to your users, you can pretty well bet they're going to throw a party on your expense. I get that. But with chargeback, that's one of the things we'll talk about, is how you actually implement chargeback to be able to actually charge the user so they have to pay for those resources. Second part of that is there's some specific pieces that you have to handle related to memory tuning and things like that. That's difficult at times, but there are ways we can automate just about anything in Orchestrator nowadays. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the discussion to Mr. Ross here on the virtual pieces.
So as we all know, there's a ton of different ways to attack virtuals. And really, virtuals we can look at, Hyper-V only and doing the manual process like Carl would probably first start off in. That's definitely my recommended path for you, Carl.
5 servers, big servers.
5 big servers that you can get in and make your own little virtual machines.
That can rack, mount,
I like it.
carry,
Yeah.
get a workout.
Those are good days, good old days. The next way is through Virtual Machine Manager, which gives us another layer of management and automation capabilities built into it. Fantastic. To build upon that is we can use Service Manager, Orchestrator, and Virtual Machine Manager to start really creating a dynamic cloud process. Microsoft did a great job and put out what's called the Cloud Service Process Pack, CSPP, which combines Service Manager, Orchestrator, Virtual Machine Manager alike to create all these great clouds in their environments. I do want to ask a quick question, though. Have anybody in the audience used the Cloud Services Process Pack?
What is a poll?
Okay. Hold on, keep your hands up.
Yeah,
I see how many? I see 4, 5.
5?
Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
Okay.
Keep them up for a second.
The next question is, has anybody successfully used the Cloud Services Process Pack to deploy virtual environments?
All right,
Holy
we have
cow.
1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and that's not bad. Excellent. So congratulations to those out there that have. That's awesome.
Definitely. The final question is, Did you actually enjoy the experience of configuring and getting the cloud service process pack going?
The hands went down.
Hands back up, please. Who enjoyed it? Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. If that gentleman back over there puts his hand up, I've got a prize for you. Who is that gentleman? Raise your hand who deployed it successfully.
There's one in the back row. And there's one in the
Right
front
there.
row. Excellent. Whoa. Pardon. Okay, we won't go near that on the way back. We'll
Yeah, and I got
around.
that. Thanks.
Thanks, Carl.
Carl.
Thanks, Carl. So he just won the Microsoft System Center 2012 Service Manager Cookbook, which I do want to give a quick plug for because it's one of the integral reading parts. If you're going down this path and you're integrating Service Manager into your environment and you really want to take it to the next level, this is one of the books you want to start with for sure, probably the first one. So definitely take a look at that and good luck on your journey.
All right. So you're right here on the...
Thank you, sir.
Excellent.
So what we have is our Cloud Process Pack, which I just mentioned a moment ago. It comes with, 8 or 9 different request offerings for you to go and create virtual machines, create clouds, update subscriptions, all kinds of great stuff. It's really very dynamic in nature, and if you look at the run books, Microsoft put a great amount of effort into creating the integration points and the scripting to really make this thing a success. I have had my times of battling with it as well, but quite frankly, it's a great job, so that's one thing you should definitely look at out of the box. And just to talk about that process a little bit more and where we're going to kind of take you with ours is, certainly you can use that CSPP, but the Service Manager plus Orchestrator plus Virtual Machine Manager does great on its own too, and it doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting. So again, we're leveraging the connectors that come out of the box with Service Manager, and Orchestrator is doing all the heavy lifting for us into Virtual Machine Manager. So with that, I want to take you into a demo now and show you actually how we do this. So we're back into my Service Manager environment. This is our front end again. Notice, the automation catapult style, that's a special group inside of Service Manager that only privileged people get to see. Probably IT admins or people like that. So when you see later in the demos, when we get into like the client side of things, that group isn't going to show up. It's very role-based and dynamic in that nature.
Hey, Carl, how many different places do you go to get your job done?
Desk, the smoking area outside. We got a cafeteria that I get my
Administrative tools. How many administrative tools?
I didn't know there were any administrative tools.
So the key point, single pane of glass, right? Everything's consolidated.
Definitely.
Thanks.
So here's our request for virtual machines or virtuals in general. I'll hop in here. I've got a request catapult virtual machine. Very straightforward. We'll go into my request form. And as you can see, it is the same interface that we experienced before. Oops. I won't type. We'll call this. Carl, I'm making you your first virtual machine, my friend.
Just saw that.
Wow.
Sounds like more work.
Uh-oh. We'll go ahead and submit our request through. Same process. Service request is created. The activities that we showed earlier, the approval and whatnot, we've simply automated in our environment so that those are automatically captured. This will kick over, but let me take you through the orchestrator side and show you what that looks like. So here's our create new virtual machine. Wow, what is this, 3 steps?
Yeah.
Really not that difficult. So the barrier for this type of interactivity is super low. All we're really defining is the inputs that we're bringing in, the name of the cloud that we're deploying to, the name of the computer, and the name of the virtual machine itself. And then from there, the second activity, and these are called activities, really creates the virtual machine for us. It's going out, it's picking a template out of Virtual Machine Manager, it's applying that template to the process, spinning up the new virtual machine, And then after it's all provisioned, we start that, and then we do some type of SCOM alerting based on the results.
And let me add to that for a second, because one of the things is we built this intentionally to be really, really simple. So you could, and we're going to show, or probably, how the parameters look like on this and how we're passing them over. There's a couple of different ways you can do that Chris would actually show how we can pass parameters or actually pass the runbook piece of it.
Yeah.
But what this allows us to do is gives you a quick way to be able to say, you know what, I want to use this, and now I want to add into it. I want to say, I want to choose the type of template that I'm going to push with it, those types of things. So we can enhance this. We wanted to show just the true simplicity of how easily you can spin up a virtual with something like this.
So again, our review activities. So real quick, just a quick point on this. When you look at the request activities, you see that they start with 2 letters, RA, RB, there could be many different ones, sequential, different types of activities. Basically, these activities tell us what type of work is actually happening in the background. So RA is a review activity. I simply went out and I went up the chain of the person asking for this particular virtual machine to make sure that their manager is okay with them creating this virtual machine. Again, we're leveraging the built-in aspects of Service Manager here because our Active Directory connector actually brings across those relationships to their manager automatically for us, assuming we have an up-to-date Active Directory. So in that case, I was able to automate this. We did an automatic approval to kind of move it along in the process. And then the creation of our virtual machine actually kicks off an RB, a runbook. That runbook is the piece that I just showed you, an orchestrator that's doing the heavy lifting. So if I flip back over here, this guy will kick off. It takes a few moments. So we'll come back again at the end and pick that up. And I'd like to show you how it's actually doing it in Virtual Machine Manager as well. Okay. I don't think we'll give that guy a second. There it goes.
Hold on. There's
Hey,
a
look at
Carlo one. Look at that.
So
What's your name, dude?
Carlo.
No, not Carlos.
Carlo.
Carlo. I didn't say Carlos. Glasses? Okay. That's enough. He didn't typo it, I swear.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so we can prove the fact that it's actually spinning up the virtual.
yeah,
and everything.
it's
That's cool.
kicking off the process right now. So we'll give that a little bit of time. It takes, I think, we tested about 9 or 10 minutes to create a virtual machine in our environment.
Yeah.
So.
And if I can add in here for a second, one of the things is that we're not going to show you the operations manager pieces of this because I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to go through all the other components and everything. We can talk afterwards if you want to see that. But there's a few things I wanted to mention is if you're using this entire System Center stack, you really need operations manager in the mix to handle the pieces that you need to know that are running. I mean, so as an example, I'm just going to pick on Orchestrator right now. So for Orchestrator, I really need to know, I actually have to have 3 different management packs to make that work properly. The first one I need to have is the Orchestrator management pack that's provided by Microsoft. It lets you know whether things are up or down, the important pieces and the rest of it, okay? That's helpful, and it's a good starting point. Trivial pursuit point, by the way, you can only deploy a Service Manager agent or an Ops Manager monitored piece of Service Manager if you have System Center 2012 with SP1. So it actually does a multi-home, which actually reports it into the other management group. And again, remember, different management group names. The second part of that is, so we're monitoring it that way, and then we also need a second management pack to monitor the orchestrator workflows themselves. Are they working? Are they up? Are they working correctly? It was mentioned earlier today in Pete's session, but Brian Wren has one that's free that he's got out there, as well as Infront Consulting has one, and it actually lets you know and gives you alerts in Ops Manager if runbooks are failing. Then the third one I highly recommend is I've got a sample management pack out there, or will soon, which actually does an automated restart of the services if anything goes offline. I've seen in my lab environment at least, and I hear it's different in virtual versus physical, but I've seen those services will actually stop. And if those services aren't running, then obviously nothing's working from orchestrator side. So we use Ops Manager to actually go in there and automatically recover that for us, restart the service, and keep things running for us. So that's how we look at it from the OM perspective.
Absolutely.
So how about from the Carl perspective?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even understand what he said. I have no idea what he said.
You're not making a good case for yourself.
I have 7 users created at this point. I just want you guys to be clear.
How many virtuals? Still don't believe in virtuals.
I've
Okay.
unboxed possibly 3 machines.
I hear you. Okay, let me switch back over here. There we go. All right. Round 2.
So again, everybody.
Come on.
Call it out,
Come on, guys.
tweet it out and the rest of it, or call it out. Either one is good. So are we going Carl on virtuals, or are we going System Center on virtuals?
Carl needs some love.
Carl
Yeah,
for applause for Carl.
Applause for Carl.
Yeah, don't vote on the
Really?
pieces once again.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Applause for System Center. All right, that's good. That's good. I feel far much better about this. I was getting very concerned that y'all are going to not automate anything when we're done here. All right.
Okay.
Round 3, software.
Okay.
Up to you. You start, man. How do you deploy software?
This is my round to win. So this is my favorite topic. I love to go deploy software. I think I refer to this with these guys as the depersonalization of IT. They come up with like all these fancy schmancy ways to deploy software. Do you know who your users are? Do you know what their kids' names are? Do you know anything about their families? Me, I talk to a user, I'm there for a couple hours.
It's not speed dating.
I just installed Office. We may go to lunch after that.
It's not speed dating. This isn't how you
that's
get
a
the
little
next
slow.
one.
If it wasn't for software deployment, I wouldn't get a date. Okay, let's just be clear.
It sounds like blackmail to me.
And when I leave, they click on the icons, everything just works. Beat that.
Okay, now I do hear you on that, and I will actually give you something on this. I will say that there are some companies and there are some particular users that are so high level of importance, in essence, your C-levels and things like that, your stock traders and things, that they have to have that personal touch with them. So you still would get that, but it would
I
just
provide the personal touch.
Oh, yeah. Stop right there. That's the line right there. All right. So, not
You
quite
brought
as
it up.
awkward. Okay. All right, so there are some that require that, but mostly, we can do this through Configuration Manager. There are certain software configurations that need to go to specific machines and compatibilities, all this type of stuff. I mean, it can be complex, so I will definitely say that. So with that, we finally, for all of you who are waiting on Jason, now Jason finally gets to speak.
I've been talking all along.
Oh, yeah.
So Config Manager, like I said, the product that we all love, correct? And that's really what it's about at the core, is about not necessarily depersonalizing IT. You can still go talk to people and make sure that they're okay. But what happens when that person isn't local? What happens if you're not in the office? What happens if you need to do the same thing over and over and over again, right? That's what automation is ultimately all about. And of course, Config Manager is going to automate those kind of things. It's going to automate the software distribution that's actually out there. And so that's really what it's going to be about, and not the personalization that's out there. Now, one of the things they added in Config Manager 2012 was an application catalog. How many of you have tried to use the application catalog or are actively using it? So it's a great start, right? That's the best way to put it. It looks kind of nice. It has some really cool features. And there's some rudimentary workflow built in, right? They didn't intend, at least initially, to have a complete workflow built into it. They didn't want it to be something super robust. Why? Because all of these other things that Service Manager brings to the table, things like the workflows, things like tracking, right? That was one of those big things. How do you know things have actually happened? How do you know who's actually done their job? Well, those are all things that are typically part of the ITIL process, that are part of that CMDB that you have in your organization. So they made it really simple. Unfortunately, I think they went a little bit too simple or stopped short of where it actually needed to be. So the App Portal is great for really small organizations, but anytime that you need to do anything a little bit more complex, that's really where Service Manager comes in. Now, having said that, Microsoft didn't leave us hanging either. They knew they had Orchestrator. They knew they had Service Manager. So let's provide something that actually glues everything together. And so there's actually something that the Accelerator team put together. It's called AAW. I have no clue what that stands for. He probably does.
Application Approval Workflow.
There you go.
It's on the slides.
I love acronyms. TLAs, they're wonderful. So they provided us this, totally free, of course. Everything from the Accelerator team is totally free. And it is that glue. So now it puts that complicated workflow behind the process so that I can have those multiple approvals, or I can have those routed approvals. I can have the email piece that's in there that Service Manager can provide so well. And of course, it can go off and send all these out without any user interaction, without any personal touch, without the TSP reports, whatever you want to have in there. So they didn't leave us hanging, right? It's definitely a layer that's on top. It definitely requires all of System Center. That's a good thing in general. And you can still get those tasks done in a great way with building on top of the core foundations of Config Manager, Ops Manager, and all the other pieces that are there.
And a couple of the things that we're going to showcase related to the demo that I wanted to point out, and I know Jason knows a lot more than I do about this, but the concept of user device affinity was one thing, and the ability to be able to package software different ways. I'd like you to kind of explain those for just a second.
Yeah, so those are two cool new features in 2012 also. So one of the new directions in Config Manager 2012, as most of you have at least heard about, hopefully, is that things are going to be user-centric, right? When that user calls Carl or the help desk, right, it's that user. He knows it's Roberta. He knows it's, whoever that is asking for Visio, that is asking for Excel, whatever application. He probably doesn't have memorized the name of the computer that that user uses. Or do you, Carl?
No, I remember her computer.
Every computer?
What about IP address?
So,
okay.
But he probably doesn't remember the folks over in Australia or the folks, across the pond or where have you. There's just no way he can keep those things up, even if he has an Excel spreadsheet on his local system. Those things change too fast in most organizations. And so this user-centric approach allows you to target users instead of computers. And does that in a seamless way so that Config Manager makes that translation in the background. So it's called user device affinity. And it allows you to assign primary users for systems. So users can actually be primary on multiple systems, and systems can have multiple primary users. Yes, that's not the definition of primary if you go to Webster's dictionary, but that's how they actually use it. And so now I can actually target that user and have that application installed on their system. Now ultimately what that application really does, right, it's kind of up to the installer. So if it's an exe installer, it's probably still going to go to program files. It's still going to probably be available for all those users on that system. Not too big of a deal. Well, that's kind of where AppV potentially comes in at that time. So we can actually target, say, the primary user's device, because we know it's a single user's device, with that exe or that MSI. Great, it's going to install on their system. Well, if that user goes over to a shared PC or goes around the corner to use somebody else's system for whatever reason, or across the pond once again, to do something, you might not want to have that application permanently installed. You're not exactly sure how that MSI is going to happen or what it's going to lay down on that system. Great. So when that user logs onto that system, we detect that it's not their primary system. So we're going to deploy the AppV to it instead, the actual sequenced application, so that it doesn't leave footprints behind and so that it's exclusive to that actual user. Now when that user leaves, no one else on that system has access to it. So it's great for licensing, for access control. And these are all essentially defining intent, right? Where do I want this application installed? I don't have to go out and explicitly say, these systems in this deployment only get this, right? I don't have to go to do those kind of things. I just have to define what my intent of where these applications actually need to be and let Config Manager figure those kind of things out on the fly. So really kind of cool things that we can take advantage of across the board. And of course with AAW in the picture, now we can add all those other wonderful things, those ITIL type things, all those wonderful tracking pieces, logging, and workflows. And that's what Chris is going to show.
Excellent. So this is yours, Chris, to take a quick walk through what pieces we're using, and then let's get to the demo.
Excellent. So AAW, again, like Jason said, uses Service Manager, Orchestrator, and Configuration Manager. Now, the trick to AAW with Configuration Manager is that we only want to bring in the software that we deem valuable enough in our company that it requires approval. Maybe it's a dollar value, maybe it's an IP value, whatever the case may be. When that approval threshold is actually checked within Configuration Manager, they're going to be able to add a business justification and submit that request. And what that looks like is a two-way relationship between both Configuration Manager and Orchestrator, as well as Service Manager and Orchestrator. So Orchestrator really acts as our kind of broker or middleman in this negotiation between Configuration Manager and Service Manager. I guess those teams never were fond of each other, so that's probably why we use Orchestrator.
No proof, no proof.
No proof.
They're jealous.
All right, so moving over to your demo lab.
There's a lot of jealousy. So what I've got up here now is my Windows 7 client. Again, I'm launched. I'm in the portal. And what I mentioned earlier, we've got a customized interface here, but what you don't see are those automation activities. This is our end user. So in this case, we only see the things that we need. But off to the left, we've got a handy little link for install software.
Carl, do your users ever fix anything by themselves?
Why would they need to?
Yeah, Carl.
Come on.
Employee of the Year, 2002.
Rocking.
I think it was 1992, but that's okay. Thanks.
Give Carlos props. Well done.
Thank you.
So what I did was I took the application catalog and bundled it directly into the Service Manager portal framework. So basically, it's just an iframe surfaced up in the middle there. And we are bringing across the specific applications that are targeted to this user in this case. We've got some of the consoles. Forgive the resolution again, but we have Config Manager console, Service Manager console, Operations Manager, and an XML notepad. So the difference here, notice off to the right, requires approval. The ones that are yes are going to be snatched up and taken into Service Manager for that application approval workflow. The one that's no, that's just going to go off and deploy straight off. So here in this case, let's choose the Config Man console.
Now, Jason, the Config Manager console, how did we package that one up?
So we actually did it both ways. So we allowed the MSI to sit out there. So in 2012, they actually provided an MSI, which, right, they moved over to the new framework. So that's nice for being able to do that and for having that local native install. Of course, it's the same way with both the Service Manager console and the Ops Manager console also. There's native MSI installs. But once again, you may have different scenarios or different reasons for not wanting to do that native install, to have that zero footprint. So we actually sequence those, so hopefully everyone's familiar at least with the term of sequencing for app V. Right, so those are app V applications also. And now at deployment time, based upon whatever criteria you want. So I definitely used the example before of primary user, but it doesn't have to be primary user. It could be maybe I'm logging onto my Citrix box and I don't want to leave that footprint behind. Maybe I have different architectures for applications. And so those are all different choices that can be made on the fly based upon my intent of where those things need to be deployed to. So we actually have all of those consoles packaged up as MSIs and as app V sequenced applications.
And I want to point something out here because those of y'all who have been doing this for a while, I don't know if I've seen anybody yet who has actually done an app V packaging of both the Configuration Manager console and the Service Manager console. So I've never seen those actually done as an app V app. So I thought that was a really interesting one, which again, probably blog post after MVP Summit or MMS Summit here, to discuss that.
With app V 5.0, they were dog easy. There was nothing special to do.
Good.
My good friend Brett out there has done it apparently.
All right.
Brett, that sounds like you win.
Well,
you
why
win
install anything? Ooh, hold on.
A
Giveaways.
Service Manager cookbook, my friend.
Come on up, man. All right.
Strange, they're both from Denver. I don't know.
All right. Okay,
Well,
sorry, I keep interrupting your demo. Knock this out here, man. Let's do this.
That's okay.
All right.
So here we've got the request approval dialog box that comes up where I get to give my business justification. The great aspect of this is we're going to take this justification, it gets dropped into Config Manager, obviously. We're going to take that and we're going to ship it into Service Manager as well. So I will go ahead and submit this request. We see that my request has been submitted. If I go and I look, it's currently at a status of requested. So just to give you a quick peek into Orchestrator so I can show you kind of behind the scenes what this runbook is doing. So let me pull up my application approval workflow. So this is the main structure here. I'll just kind of hide all this other stuff. What we have up top, really, the business part of this is this automation page. There's 4 runbooks that run. The first one does an application catalog sync. So it's actually going over into Config Manager to find out what's published there currently, and it's bringing those items into Service Manager as CIs. So that's very important because we need to be able to make the relationship to all this in Service Manager and the CMDB. The second runbook to this is our application request sync. So when an application request comes in, like the one we just dropped in, that's sitting in Config Manager still. So we have to go snag it real quick and bring it in and then ultimately ship it over into Service Manager. Next runbook is really automation monitors. So this is the piece that's going and shipping that over.
Now I'm going to interrupt and just point a little note here. So at Pete and our Amber session this morning, I think it was Anders Bangström session, they actually talked about when you're architecting your runbooks that if you have to scroll, it's too large. From left to right, and I'm going to point out the fact that we didn't write this runbook. So, but it's a cool one.
Well, I should state that I guess a lot of times it may make sense to go right to left if you're Chinese, for instance. So, whatever works for you, it's flexible.
All right.
true. So we've got our automation monitor, which I just mentioned, and then the poll of Service Manager, which is actually going out and finding out if the proper approvals have been given, whether it was approved or rejected, and then bringing that information back into Configuration Manager, rather. So that's the bulk of the processes, and we see, I've got this to kind of go off every 2 minutes or so. In a production environment, you're probably syncing these types of requests over maybe once, an hour, maybe even half an hour, depending on how quick you want to turn this stuff around. So in my environment, a little bit quicker. Let's see if we're lucky enough to catch this in the act in Service Manager.
So Chris, all of those orchestrator runbooks and all of the portal pieces, how much code did you actually have to write?
Well, 0, really.
Yeah. At the end of the day, right, that's an important piece about Orchestrator.
Yeah.
You're not writing code, so if you don't like code, if you don't like PowerShell, well, first, shame on you for not liking PowerShell.
Yeah.
But if you don't like it, if you're not good at it, right, that's not a problem. That's what Orchestrator is all about. And even, we enlisted a guy to help skin the portal. But that's graphics at the end of the day. You don't specifically need it. All of the other runbooks are just essentially drag and drop pieces. He didn't have to have any coding knowledge. He didn't have to know APIs for any of these disparate systems, because that's what the integration packs brought to the table. And the same thing would happen with potentially other systems in the environment.
So I'm going to skinny this down real quick so that we can see a little bit more of the Service Manager console. So basically, I've got my application requests that come in automatically to Service Manager. The great thing is, if I haven't seen something come in, I can automatically tell it to sync now, which is fantastic. That's actually going out to the runbook and submitting that job to sync the entire process. So if Carl is bored, he just hits that 12 times in a row. That's perfect.
F5.
Yeah, you've got that kind of power. So from there, what we end up seeing in our scenario is an activity will come about that'll be a review activity. And if I look at all activities real quick, just to make sure I didn't auto-approve this one. Sort of the other way. Nope. So still waiting for that activity to come across. We'll come back to this shortly and check the monitor of that automated application approval.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. So we will be going back to those probably towards the end of the session so you can see what's been running in the meantime. So here we go. So round 3. We're going to do this by round of applause again. So applaud if Carl won round 3.
Come on, guys.
Virtual.
I installed Rebecca's.
That's good. That's good.
I know what she's doing this weekend. I installed her office. I know her kids' names.
This is good.
What
this
can
is
you
good.
guys
I
say?
agree.
It's called
All right.
stalking, isn't it?
That's
It's
true.
illegal, you know that.
All right, how about on the other side? System Center on that one? All right. Now, behind the scenes, just so you all know, Chris has actually been getting live information on the tweet stats as we're going through it, so we'll know here what the actual Twitter results look like, and we'll see how things go based upon that. All right, so let me go into lessons learned. So again, I'm an ops manager geek. None of this was ops manager, so I had to learn a whole lot to try to figure out, and there were a lot of great lessons learned. So first off, what I learned on Orchestrator. Build your runbook first, and absolutely use the runbook tester. Don't even try to front it in Service Manager. Build it in Orchestrator, test it out there, use that step-by-step to figure out exactly what's going on, what's right, what's wrong, okay? That's really important.